Our first guest tonight cares more about the American people than most of us care about ourselves. He is the new chairman of the Senate Budget Committee. Please welcome Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont. Hello, Senator.
Great to be with you, Tim.
It's great to see you. Are you in your office in D.C. or a hotel room in Cancun right now?
I'm in D.C.
May I ask, when something like that happens to one of your fellow senators, does anyone bring it up, or do you just kind of pretend it didn't happen?
Well, depending on which side of the aisle you're on, it is brought up, yes.
It is brought up. Are you enjoying being in charge of the Budget Committee?
I am. It's a lot of fun because, as you can appreciate, the budget deals with all aspects of the federal government, in fact, all aspects of American life. And we intend to do a number of hearings trying to understand why the gap between the very rich and everybody else is growing wider, why half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, why so many of our people are uninsured or underinsured, and why many millions of people, we're doing a hearing on this week, why so many of our people, millions of people, are working for starvation wages.
Let's talk about that.
A lot of good hearing.
How long have you been trying to get the minimum wage raised federally?
Well, for many, many years, when I ran for president in 2016, I called for a $15 an hour minimum wage. At that point, frankly, not a lot of people supported it. Today, the last poll that I saw had 61% of the American people in support.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's not higher, actually. I really am. I think back to when I was in high school and making minimum wage, working at a clothing store at a pizza place, and it was $3.35 back then. And I was just looking through some of the states, it's $7.25 now. In the year 2021, people are making $7.25 an hour. And these are not high school students. These are adults. These are people with families.
Jimmy, that's a very important point to make, because there's a lot of misconceptions about that. But I've been all over this country. And I, honest to God, can recall talking to working moms, raising children, trying to do it on $10.50 an hour, and you can't do it. And you got a lot of people working for even less than that. And these are adults. They got to pay rent. They need to have all the basic necessities of life. They need to feed their kids. And one of the great crises that we're facing is that so many of our people in the richest country in the history of the world are literally struggling to put food on the table. And we've got to change that. $15 an hour, and by the way, it's over a 4-year period, is not a radical idea. You understand, you make $15 an hour, you are not getting rich.
No.
But at least you have a shot to live with a minimal of dignity, and you don't have to have all of the stress and pressure that's on you right now trying to survive on starvation wages.
I've heard you talk about this, and I think one of the interesting things is, because there are some people that say, like, well, how are you supposed to run a business if you have to pay all your workers $15 an hour? I won't be able to make it. And I think probably in some cases that is true. But ultimately, when you pay your workers $7 an hour, we all wind up paying for it anyway.
Jimmy, that's an enormously important point, and we're going to be discussing it this week at a hearing. And here is the point, and I want everybody to hear this. Right now, you have Walmart, which is the largest employer in America, owned by the Walton family, who are worth $200 billion. They're the wealthiest family in America. And about half of their workers earn less than $15 an hour. Their starting wage is $11 an hour. And when you are paying people starvation wages, those people need to get food stamps, they need to get Medicaid, they need to get public housing perhaps. They need help in order to survive. And it is the taxpayers of this country, middle class, working class people, who are paying those taxes in order to subsidize the wealthiest family in America. And that is absurd. A multi-billion-dollar family, the richest family in America, can afford to pay their workers living wages.
When you have these hearings, will members of the Walton family be there? Will the CEOs, can you compel them to come and explain?
Well, we can compel them, but we're not compelling them now. At this point, we have invited them. We've invited the head of McDonald's to be there. They will not be there. But interestingly enough, the head of Costco will be there.
That's because Costco's the best.
Right. And Costco is a company which has a very different business model than Walmart or Dollar General and other large companies. They respect their employees. There's nobody working for Costco that makes less than $15 an hour. And the morale of their employees is high, the turnover is low. And that, to me, is a sensible business approach.
Yeah, and it makes the best people want to go work at Costco. So it does make sense in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when worker morale is high, when there is not absenteeism, when there is not turnover, it makes for a better company and a well-run company. And I think they are proof of that.
When you are chairman of the Budget Committee, do you enjoy banging the gavel? And is the gavel your gavel, or is it a community gavel that has been there?
That is a good question. I think I probably end up with it, but one of the things, as I'm sure you're aware, Jimmy, that where the Budget Committee is now working really hard is on a reconciliation, what we call a reconciliation package. It is an effort right now, $1.9 trillion being pushed by President Biden, which attempts to deal with the enormous crises, unprecedented crises facing our country today. So what we are trying to do is to make sure that every working class family in America, $75,000 for an individual or less, $150,000 or less for a family, including children, will get on top of the $600 they got last month, a $1,400 check. So a family of four gets $5,600. We are expanding the child tax credit, which will cut childhood poverty in half in America. And that is no small thing.
No, not at all. And the highest ranking Republican in your committee is Lindsey Graham, who is he someone that you can work with? Because I'm trying to figure out what happened to him.
Well, I will let Senator Graham speak for himself. You know, we get along. You know, I'm chairman of the committee, and, you know, we are going to raise issues that, you know, historically have not been raised very often. So our job right now in reconciliation, and we hope to have something on the floor literally next week, is to address, you know, the healthcare crisis, the educational crisis, the mental health crisis. You know, you got kids, and I know you just were talking about it. You got kids whose lives have been disrupted. They haven't been to school. Their social life has been impacted. Enormous mental distress in this country. We got money in there to try to help that. So this is a very, very important piece of legislation that we hope to get passed as soon as possible. That's
right. We just met an 8-year-old who turned to a life of crime as a result of this. All right. Senator Bernie Sanders is with us. We'll be right back. Senator Bernie Sanders is with us. May I say, you look better than I've seen you look in a long time. You look really good.
Thank you.
Have you been vaccinated?
I have, actually, yeah.
You have been vaccinated. You know, we've been focused on COVID, obviously, for obvious reasons, but it seems like our attention has drifted away from healthcare, which of course, they're kind of one and the same, and so many people have died as a result of COVID-19. I hope and expect that Joe Biden made you some promises in the area of healthcare in exchange for your enthusiastic support.
Well, the president and I have differences of opinion on healthcare. I do support Medicare for all. I do think it's absurd that when we are spending, Jimmy, twice as much per capita on healthcare as any other major country, we got 90 million people who are uninsured or underinsured. Some 60,000 people die every single year because they don't get to a doctor when they should. And in some cases, we're paying 10 times more for prescription drugs as they do in Canada and in other countries. So I believe we've got to finally take on the greed of the insurance companies and the drug companies and pass Medicare for all. What the president wants to do is expand the Affordable Care Act, which is a step in the right direction, and I'll work with them on that. But at the end of the day, I would hope that we conclude healthcare is a human right, whether you're rich or whether you're poor, and the function of a healthcare system is to provide quality care to all, not to make huge profits for the insurance companies and the drug companies.
As far as the planet goes, who, in your opinion, is more responsible for the power outages in Texas? Is it AOC or windmills?
Well, maybe the folks in Texas might want to take a look at what they have been doing for many, many years. But, you know, the truth is what has happened in Texas, what has happened in many parts of our country and around the world tells us that in the long run, it will be much more expensive if we ignore the existential threat of climate change than if we transform our energy system away from fossil fuel. And by the way, you know, I've been talking about the reconciliation package. That's number one, dealing with the emergencies that working families face now. And we hope to have that on the floor next week. But there's another bill coming down which will deal with the need to transform our energy system, create millions of good-paying jobs, combating climate change, and rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. We got some 10% of our workforce today is unemployed. We've got to put people back to work at good wages, and that's a good way to do that.
How do you deal with the absurdity of something like blaming the power outages on windmills? I mean, these are people that you have to work with, and obviously they're just trying to distract us from the truth and from the real issues. But how do you deal with that as a human being?
Well, I'll tell you how. I mean, it's hard. It really is. Look, I mean, you know, you got a lot of Republicans who are decent human beings. They're good fathers and mothers and everything else. But especially, you know, under Trump, we have seen this country and the Republican Party move, to my mind, very far away from reality. And the fact that you got colleagues of mine in the Senate who refuse even today to acknowledge that Donald Trump lost the election. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the big lies? How do you deal with conspiracy theories? How do you deal with a massive effort to try to undermine American democracy by claiming that, you know, the campaign, the Biden victory was a fraud, wasn't real? So that's not easy to deal with. But I think what you're seeing right now is we are reaching out to Republicans and saying, look, if you want to rebuild our infrastructure, come on aboard. You want to lower the cost of prescription drugs? You want to provide health care to all people? You want to raise minimum wage in this country? We'd love to have you. But if you are not prepared to come on board, we're going to go forward and we're going to do it alone. We got 50 votes plus the vice president. We can do it in the Senate. We got the votes in the House. That's what we intend to do.
And you got a gavel to hit him over the head with if you need to. Thank you, Senator. Bernie Sanders, thanks for being with us. We'll be back with Soleil Moon Frye. Hi, I'm Jimmy Kimmel, and this is The Internet. I made it myself. Hit subscribe if you like it.